Hidden in the shadows of America's industrial past lie places no one dares to enter after dark. These abandoned factories are more than just ruins. They're gateways to terrifying mysteries, haunted by restless souls and unexplained phenomena, ready to uncover the top 10 most haunted factories in the USA. Stay with us if you dare. 1. Packard Automotive Plant, Detroit, Michigan. They said no one with a sane mind would dare enter the ruins of the Packard Automotive Plant after sundown. Towering over East Grand Boulevard in Detroit, this once mighty symbol of industrial glory now stands as a decaying skeleton of steel and shadow. Locals whisper about the man in the boiler room, a ghostly figure believed to be the spirit of a worker crushed during a factory collapse in the 1940s. According to the Detroit Paranormal Research Society, a 2009 investigation recorded unexplained EMF spikes near the collapsed stairwell, exactly where the man had died. Security guards hired to patrol the area refused to go in alone. One reported hearing heavy metal footsteps echoing through the machinery bay, even though the floor was littered with rusted debris. Another claimed he saw glowing eyes watching him from the shattered control room, eyes that blinked, then vanished. But the most chilling tale came from a group of urban explorers in 2017. They found an old time card machine still bolted to a moss-covered wall. One of them joked and punched in a random number. Seconds later, all their flashlights went out at once. In the pitch black, they heard a mechanical voice whisper, "Shift begins now." They ran, and none of them have returned. Would you? 2. The Remington Arms Factory, Bridgeport, Connecticut. For nearly a century, the Remington Arms Factory in Bridgeport forged the weapons of war bullets, rifles, machines of death. But after its closure in the late 1980s, silence fell over the complex. A silence filled with secrets. Locals call it the factory that still breathes. In 2010, a team of ghost hunters from New England spirit trackers recorded distinct gunshot sounds echoing through the old testing range, despite no one being inside and no active power running through the building. The sounds were captured on audio, and when replayed, a faint whisper followed the last shot. It wasn't supposed to misfire. The rumor? A young engineer, killed during a weapons test gone wrong, still lingers in the place where he drew his last breath. Workers before the shutdown claimed to see a man in a lab coat wandering the lower level, always near the bullet testing chamber, before vanishing through a locked steel door. In 2015, a former guard named Terrence Davis confessed during an interview that one night he heard a voice behind him say, "Don't touch that switch." When he turned, no one was there, but the breaker panel he'd almost flipped was still warm, though unused for years. There are no lights in the Remington Arms Factory now, but if you stand near the main gate after midnight, some say you'll hear machines whir to life. And footsteps marching just behind you. Would you turn around? 3. Sloth Furnaces, Birmingham, Alabama. At Sloth Furnaces in Birmingham, the iron may have cooled, but something else still burns. Once a titan of the steel industry, this towering complex of smokestacks and blast furnaces is now remembered less for its history and more for the horrors that linger within. Between the late 1800s and early 1900s, dozens of workers died on site in gruesome accidents, many due to the cruel orders of a foreman named James Slag Wormwood. He was notorious for pushing men to work 20-hour shifts in sweltering heat, near molten metal with no safety gear. But in 1906, Slag met a terrifying end. He slipped and fell from the top of furnace number 1, plunging into a vat of liquid iron. His body was never recovered. To this day, workers and visitors report strange encounters around that same furnace. In 1971, just before the site was decommissioned, A night watchman named Samuel recounted being shoved from behind, though he was alone. He turned to see a shadowy figure standing above the catwalk, staring down, then vanishing. The most disturbing evidence came in 2005, when a local news team spent the night filming a Halloween special. Their audio equipment captured a deep growl near the furnace and a voice that muttered, "back to work." None of the crew had spoken. The legend of Slag lives on. Some say he never left, still walking the furnaces, furious at the laziness of the living. So if you ever find yourself in Birmingham, stay clear of furnace number 1, or he might put you on a shift. 4. Pullman Factory, Chicago, Illinois. In the quiet corners of Southside Chicago, the Pullman Factory still stands, its red brick walls cracked, its windows hollow like empty eyes. Built in the 1880s to manufacture luxury railroad cars, this place was once the pride of industrial America. But behind its grandeur lies a dark legacy of unrest, blood, and shadows that have never left. In 1894, the infamous Pullman strike paralyzed the nation's rail system. Angry workers, underpaid and overworked, rose up. The government sent troops. The result? Violence, death, blood spilled on the factory floor. And some say it never truly dried. Visitors today report hearing distant shouting echoing through the old assembly halls like the ghost of a protest frozen in time. In 2013, a pair of historical researchers documented cold spots in the southern wing of the plant where strikers were said to have been beaten and arrested. Their thermal imaging showed human-shaped anomalies standing perfectly still and then disappearing. A former janitor, interviewed in 1999, recalled locking up the main hall late one night, only to hear the rhythmic pounding of hammers from the abandoned workshop. When he opened the door, it stopped. Inside, nothing but a workbench with fresh metal shavings on top. Most disturbing of all was a photograph taken during a restoration project in 2017. In the upper window of the clock tower, a blurry figure in old-fashioned overalls can be seen staring down, though no one had access to that floor. Some say it's the spirit of a worker who never clocked out, and maybe never will. 5. Centriia Mine, Centriia, Pennsylvania. Beneath the ghost town of Centriia lies a fire that has been burning since 1962, an underground coal blaze that forced nearly every resident to flee. But those who explore what's left of the mine processing site say something far more chilling lingers in the smoke. The plant itself was once the heart of the operation, where coal was sorted, loaded, and shipped. Now it stands abandoned, its conveyor belts frozen in rust, its walls scorched and cracked. But visitors swear the machinery still moves when no one is looking. In 2008, 2 urban explorers posted a video online of their visit. Midway through, the camera caught a thick fog curling through the hall. A whisper echoed on the audio, "Get out before it comes." No one was there. Locals tell stories of a miner named Thomas Riley, who vanished during the early days of the underground fire. He'd gone back to warn his crew, but never returned. Since then, several hikers claim to have seen a man in a soot-covered helmet standing at the mine entrance, only to watch him fade into the smoke. The Pennsylvania Paranormal Collective investigated the site in 2015. Their heat sensors detected movement inside the processing building, despite temperatures above 130 degrees Fahrenheit from the fire below and absolutely no life. Some say the mine isn't just burning, it's feeding on memories, on fear, on souls that never escaped. If you ever visit Centriia, don't follow the footsteps in the ash. You might not be alone. Pratt Cotton Gin Factory, Prattville, Alabama. Tucked along the banks of Autauga Creek, the ruins of the old Pratt Cotton Gin Factory still loom silent, crumbling, yet watching. Built in the 1830s, it was once the heartbeat of Alabama's cotton empire, but centuries of sorrow have soaked into its bricks. And some say the spirits of the enslaved and overworked have never found peace. By day, it's just another ruin, but by night, the stories begin. In 2006, a photographer capturing long exposure shots at dusk noticed something chilling. In one frame, a figure in a tattered white dress stood beneath the second-story arch. In the next, she was gone. Locals believe it was the Jinn Widow, the ghost of a woman who lost her husband in a machinery accident and leapt to her death from that very floor. But she's not alone. Residents nearby often hear the creak of the long-dead water wheel turning at midnight, even though it hasn't moved in over 100 years. In 2012, a group of teens dared each other to step inside. They returned pale, trembling, claiming they heard whispering voices repeating the same phrase, asterisk, work, work, growing louder until they fled. What's more disturbing? A maintenance crew repairing a nearby walkway in 2018 reported finding fresh cotton strands tied into tiny knots hanging from the rafters, though no cotton has passed through those beams in over a century. Something is still working inside the gin, something that refuses to stop. Will you listen ... when it calls your name? Bethlehem steel plant. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, once the powerhouse of American industry. The Bethlehem steel plant forged the weapons and bridges that built a nation. But behind its towering blast furnaces and endless catwalks, something darker was forged to tragedy, loss, and spirits that never left. This colossal plant stretched over 1,000 acres and employed tens of thousands, but the work was brutal. Dozens died in horrific accidents, crushed by machinery, burned in molten spills, or swept off catwalks by unseen forces. In 1995, during a historical preservation survey, 2 workers reported hearing a man screaming from inside Furnace C. When they rushed to check, they found nothing except the smell of burning flesh lingering in the cold air. Paranormal investigators who entered in 2009 captured infrared video of a figure walking through the smelting floor, then vanishing behind a pillar. No footsteps, no heat signature, just gone. Perhaps the most unsettling tale comes from a former steelworker named Luis Ortega. In a 2003 interview, he claimed that late one night, while walking the perimeter, he saw the ghost of his old foreman, dead for over 10 years, standing at the exact spot where he'd fallen to his death. The figure pointed toward the crane bay, then disappeared in the smoke. The plant may be silent now, but those who walk its grounds say the clang of metal still echoes, and the men who died here are still punching the clock. Would you clock in for a shift that never ends? 8. Dogpatch USA Processing Plant, Marble Falls, Arkansas. Deep in the Ozark Mountains lies the crumbling remains of Dogpatch, a Swiss cheerful hillbilly-themed amusement park. But behind the laughter and fake smiles was a real industrial heartbeat, a small but vital processing plant used for food storage and delivery across the park. And today, that forgotten building has become the center of something far more sinister. Locals say the plant is cursed. Since the park's closure in 1993, thrill-seekers have entered the mold-covered building only to flee in terror. In 2014, 2 explorers captured footage of children's laughter echoing through the halls, though the video clearly shows no one there. One voice in the recording whispers, asterisk, "I want my ice cream," just before their flashlight exploded. The origin of the haunting? Some believe it's tied to a tragic accident in the plant's refrigeration unit, where a young employee named Eddie slipped and was trapped inside. By the time anyone found him, it was too late. Rumor says Eddie still wanders the plant, searching for a way out with frost on his fingertips and sorrow in his eyes. In 2019, a reporter from the Arkansas Paranormal Review wrote about her visit. She found a trail of wet footprints leading from the freezer to the back door. In the middle of a dry summer night, the rides may be gone, the laughter has faded, but in the shadows of Dogpatch's forgotten heart, something still plays and waits. Would you answer if it called your name? 9. The Detroit Dry Dock Complex, Detroit, Michigan. Long before the city fell into ruin, the Detroit Dry Dock Complex was alive with fire and steel, where ships were born, forged in the smoke of progress. But today, those vast shipyards and forgotten workshops are home to something else entirely, something no one dares disturb after dark. It was here that a young Henry Ford once worked, but the glory days are long gone. Now, wind whips through the hollow frames of rusted cranes, and shadows stretch unnaturally long inside the cavernous dry docks. Local legends say a welder named Jonah fell to his death in 1921 while working on a ship's hull. His body was never recovered, swallowed by the black water below. In 2011, a group of drone photographers documented a strange phenomenon. In one clip, their drone's camera glitches, then briefly shows what looks like a figure in coveralls standing knee-deep in dry dock hash 3. Where no water has existed for years, night guards have their own stories. One claimed he heard metal boots pacing behind him, always 3 steps behind, but when he turned, nothing. Will you be the one to help him finish it, or join the crew below? 10. Springfield Armory, Springfield, Massachusetts. At the heart of Springfield stands a fortress of American firepower, the Springfield Armory, once the nation's primary weapons manufacturer. But behind its patriotic legacy lies a history soaked in death, secrecy, and shadows that whisper. From the Revolutionary War through World War II, the armory churned out rifles, bayonets, and artillery. With it came fatal accidents, explosions in powder rooms, crushing machinery, even suicides from war-weary veterans who returned to work here, but never found peace. In 1984, long after the armory had been turned into a museum, a janitor reported hearing marching boots echoing through the empty hall. He followed the sound to the old barracks room, only to find it ice cold and filled with the scent of gunpowder. There was no one there. Security footage from 2007 caught a shadowy figure moving across the main assembly floor at 2:17 a.m., the same hour a munitions blast had killed 3 workers in 1913. The figure walked in a rigid military gait, then vanished behind a sealed wall. Visitors today report sudden headaches, flickering lights, and disembodied voices whispering military commands like, "Stand down," or *hold the line. One child claimed a man in uniform told him to salute when no guides were nearby. The armory may serve history now, but some say its soldiers never stopped serving trapped in ranks, doomed to patrol forever. If you visit and hear boots behind you, don't turn around. Just keep walking. These factories may be silent now, but their stories and their spirits refuse to fade away. Which haunted site sent chills down your spine the most? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales from America's darkest corners.